We take pride in being members of what is conveniently coined the free world. We are a sovereign, independent democracy, which means we should be the mistresses and masters of our own fate. But is that true? What has 70 years of history since the end of the last Great War taught us? It has taught us that great power politics is not only playing out at the strategic international stage, but it is played out in terms of propaganda and meddling and fixing at all states to ensure that the system as created in a world order does not change. What has been the scale of that operation would boggle the imagination, perhaps find it for us difficult to comprehend. Let us not kid ourselves that there are conspiracies that have been played out in this country to deny us nuclear weapons, to deny us space technology. Some of our most eminent leaders have died in mysterious circumstances. Who knows what happened to Lal Bahadur Shastri as he was negotiating peace with Pakistan in a foreign country? Who knows what happened when a certain aircraft crashed into Mont Blanc, killing one of India's top scientists? Who knows what happened when another scientist was alone, healthy in his house and simply just died, and the father of ISRO was no longer with us? All of world history in the past few decades is also checkered with repeated intervention, meddling, interference of what otherwise would be sovereign powers. All great powers have done it. Now, as we sit comfortably, and think, hey, why would friendly countries want to meddle and influence our affairs? We have the penchant, the naivety and the miasma to get sucked into complacency until we are rudely awakened. And that rude awakening has just happened. Now, what Jack Straw, who was Foreign Secretary under a Labour Prime Minister Tony Blair, the same Tony Blair infamous for having invaded Iraq on false pretexts, therefore meddling in the country over lies, leading to the death of now 1 million Iraqis, Muslims, and counting. What Jack Straw has just revealed to us, and this was not his intention to reveal to us, his intention was something completely different, but here is what has happened in practice. That just in this millennium, the British government of Tony Blair was running unauthorized operations in India. India is a sovereign country. Any interference of any level has to happen with the permission of our sovereign elected government. Jack Straw has admitted that the British government and the British High Commission operating out of New Delhi were conducting quasi-colonial, ex-parte investigations in this country that were authorized by no one in this country. On what basis? There is no clause in the Independence of India Act signed off by Clement Attlee and the then royals that gave the British permission to conduct any such activities. There is no clause in the Vienna Convention that allows them to do so. Now, this begs a serious question. If the British are operating covert ops within this country, were those covert ops restricted to only recording events, or have they in the past, or perhaps even currently, are going further to deliberately influence events, and how many covert ops is MI6 or the British government or British forces or British authorities still running in this country that are unfriendly and have the potential of creating exactly the same crises that today they say they sit back as simply documenters. This entire issue of the two-nation theory, the partition of India, was started by the British policy of divide and rule. It was put into practice by the division of Bengal by Curzon in 1905, and it was brutally put into execution with the partition of India, which would not have happened without British collusion. And the level of British collusion I will be examining in a later telecast. So the British, who have a track record of creating Hindu-Muslim issues in this country, we are operating under the assumption that that stopped in 1947-48. That after that, the British have played absolutely no role in perpetuating the two-nation theory which they themselves created. But today we are being told that for sure they are running covert ops in this country. Now my question is, are those ops only of a documenting nature? Are they running quasi-colonial investigations, or are they running quasi-colonial operations meant to destabilize this country? And how can we know if we don't have transparency and an investigation into all British activities in India in the past 3 decades? Now, Strawgate has hit the globe. There's no walking back from it. Jack Straw is quiet. Tony Blair is quiet. The British High Commission in New Delhi is quiet. The British government is quiet. The Labour Party is quiet. None of them are now commenting on how is it that a violation of India's sovereignty took place in such a casual manner. And if a violation of India's sovereignty took place in such a casual manner on such an episode, how are we to take for granted that in any association with the British, that they are not actively conniving, participating to further destabilize India as they did for 200 years before they theoretically left? Now, it's a serious question, and it now requires some serious conversations. Let me open this up. Joining us on the broadcast, we have Professor Madhav Nalapat is with us, Colonel J. Sodhi is with us, P.K. Mishra joining us, and Gautam Mukherjee is joining us. Now, Professor Nalapat, let me just quickly take you back to what we now know Jack Straw has said. He has said that they got reports regarding rioting taking place in Gujarat. They set up an investigation team and sent an investigation team into Gujarat. Now, to the best of my knowledge, sir, there existed no international mandate, no Vienna Convention, no UNSC resolution, no UNMOGIP operating in Gujarat, that there is even the slight legal pretext of a foreign operation, a covert operation, which is being revealed 20 years later. Now, how do I know, Professor Nalapat, that all these people were doing was simply with their notepads making notes? How do I know that they were not actively conniving, assisting, abetting? How can I be reassured that that was not taking place?
Rishabh, the fact is that the Labour Party in Britain in particular has had a very long association with a particular national party in India. A very, very long association dating back, I would say, 1930s, 1940s, very long association. And obviously, that party would prefer that the party with which it is a long association come to office in India rather than any other. Now, you have seen, for example, a systematic effort by not only Britain, but some other countries to basically paint one particular leader as basically in a very negative light. And that is, you have fake information about him, such as this particular fake dossier. You have visa denials, all that took place. This was very obvious. Now, I'm asking a few simple logical points about Mr. Straw, assuming he's speaking the truth about this kind of a report. and which he took seriously in good faith. My own belief is, I think it would have been basically something to please certain politicians in India. The visa denial policy, I know from Washington, it was carried out by George W. Bush and subsequently continued to please certain high level politicians in India of a political party, not because of any question of fact. It was not based on fact. Now, why did not this great commission, this detective commission, Sherlock Holmes, Hercule Poirot, all that rolled into one, this Scotland Yard super, give its information and findings to the government of Manmohan Singh? That poor government was working for 10 years to find out some information linking Narendra Modi to the Gujarat riots. They knew the Congress party very well. Dr. Manmohan Singh is very well known and well liked and respected in England. Mrs. Sonia Gandhi and her family have extensive contacts in England, extensive friendships in England. Why didn't they hand over this particular dossier? I mean, nobody can accuse them of trying to protect, the then Chief Minister of Gujarat. They were viscerally anti him. It is very clear from that period. Why didn't they hand over dossier? Possibly because they may have done that, and it would have been seen that this so-called dossier, essentially, this delegation went to India on a junket with the conclusions already written in London before they landed
But
in
my
India,
question,
and they met their usual suspects.
yes, but my question is a lot more serious. In for a penny, in for a pound. Gautam Mukherjee, if I am now being told on camera that extrajudicial, in violation of the Vienna Convention, quasi-colonial operations were running in India in the 2000s, how am I to be reassured, that these were merely documenting activities, that they were not interference activities? We saw a very strange thing that happened very recently regarding rioting that took place in Delhi for the first time in 25 years, 3 or 4 days before Donald Trump arrived. We saw strange things happening, that protests are taking place in India and they being raised in the UK Parliament. How I can be assured that this was only a documentary operation and this was not an instigation operation, given full well that the British have been instigating Hindus against Muslims and Muslims against Hindus for 200 years in this country? How do I know that they weren't doing it proactively?
Well, Rishabh, if you look at the timeline, what you are alluding to is possible, because 2002, the BJP was in charge. Atal Bihari Vajpayee was running the government. But lo and behold, unexpectedly, after the India Shining campaign and everything, the BJP lost. And, what had been largely written off came back after 8 years in the wilderness, and the Congress party and the UPA were back in power. Do they need to see the dossier? I don't think so. Did the British help them on the ground? It is quite probable they're doing so now, so why not then? Rishabh.
P.K. Mishra, it is well established, it is in folklore, okay, not just in movies and books of fiction, it's in folklore, that the Americans for a long time ran operations with NGOs as a front to meddle in the affairs of other countries, including ours. Sometimes they did it very publicly. Very often they were trying to conduct regime change activities very covertly. Now, if it has been established by a Freudian confession that a covert operation was running within India in 2002, how do I know that this covert operation was simply a documenting it was a documenting operation and not an instigating operation designed to create a crisis in India?
Yes, it is a direct interference in India by US, and I can well tell that what Jack Straw has stated and what all the BBC has shown it in the YouTube, which they withdrew it after one day only. These all are basically, it's for causing violence, or what you told, you were correct, for conflict between two communities in India. This is what which is happening. And the US is behind this since long. And you see, from Richard Nixon's time, I mean, in 1971 war, the 7th Fleet was sent to participate in Indo-Pak war. Can we forget that, what US has done? So basically, they are there. And
okay, let me ask you a specific question, Mr. Mishra. To the best
Yes.
of your knowledge,
yeah,
in times of your service, if there was riot activity taking place within the sovereign territory of the United Kingdom, which is England, Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland.
okay.
There were riots that took place in 2011 in several cities in which 5 people died. There was many crises that took place in Northern Ireland, including Bloody Sunday in 1972, when the
Yes.
British Army killed 26 Catholics, unarmed Catholics. Would it be within our powers of jurisdiction to set up commissions of inquiry to go to the UK and probe these activities? Would we have the authority to do so, sir, under any convention that you're aware of?
That's what neither Geneva Convention or any convention is there in which we can go and do our own investigation, or that way, allow any other agency on our behalf to go and do it. And this is what see, the division was made by Britishers in India, and they thought it's mostly the Britishers and the Americans. They think that they were ruling India, and they think that India is the same
Okay.
India before 1947,
Okay.
and they will keep on doing
It is the job
they
of
have done it.
diplomats. It is the job of diplomats to send to their home countries and governments detailed reports of developments taking place where they are serving. That's their job. Now, where does that job cross over into covert ops and meddling? Let me get Colonel Sodhi into this. Colonel Sodhi, now I have an admission that under no mandate and in the violation of the Vienna Conventions, the British were running a quasi-colonial investigation without the permission, to the best of our knowledge, of a serving independent government of India. Now, how can I be assured, Colonel Sodhi, that this was the only covert op they've ran or are currently running?
Jai Hind, Rishabh. It's my honor to be on a news channel and a privilege to be with the esteemed co-panelist. The secret and stealth manner in which BBC has made a documentary on the Gujarat riots is defamatory and derogatory for India as a country, for our judicial system, and for our Prime Minister, who's today the tallest leader in the world. Every major power in the world, every major leader in the world wants to have a bilateral meeting with Mr. Narendra Modi. And this is probably the reasons why BBC has chosen to release this documentary at this time when the elections, next election, are just 400 days away. In fact, this documentary was released a day after Mr. Modi announced in the BJP National Executive meeting that
No, but Colonel
400
Sodhi,
days
I'm
are
trying to
left
ask you a
the
far
election.
more serious question, sir. Now, we've discussed that. If a former foreign secretary who served at the highest ranks of the UK government under Tony Blair for 5 years, he was Home Secretary, then Foreign Secretary. If he is saying that we were running investigations in India, okay, how am I to be assured that all they are doing is running investigation, that there are no active covert ops being operated by the British authorities or MI6 within this country that are designed to influence and meddle in the affairs, in the internal affairs of this country? How can I be assured today without an assurance from the British government or the British envoy here?
Rishabh, money makes the mayor go. And Britain, though it may be economically weak at this moment, but they have enough of secret funds for the MI6. And I'm certain that this is not the first, this is not the last such covert ops they have carried out. There are many more going on at this particular moment too. And as we near the next elections of 24, you will see more and more such reports will come out. Basically, this is an aim to unstable and unsettle India because they are jealous that how come a colonial power, how come brown people are today the world leaders? They left us in a penury lurch, and today India has overtaken them to become the world's 5th biggest economy, and Britain is staring at becoming bankrupt.
Okay. So Gautam Mukherjee, how can I rest assured that our friends in these great democracies, the UK, the US, how can I be rest assured that the United Kingdom and its covert agencies at this point of time, are not running operations meant to politically destabilize India? How can I be reassured that this is not happening right now?
I think it would be naive and foolish of us to assume any such thing. This is old-fashioned statecraft. In the days when we were staunch allies of the USSR, the KGB was very much present in Indian politics, influencing elections, influencing leaders, paying them. They were on their payroll. We know this from the Mitrokin archives. The CIA has always operated in various countries and gone so far as to depose people, have them assassinated, and certainly covert activity of a very well-funded kind. Let us remember the ISI was trained by the CIA. MI5, MI6 are old warriors.
Yeah, so
They
then
have
this is my
been
question,
in
Gautam Mukherjee,
India.
because yes, we are naive, because when we have conversations, we lay the blame and the finger of suspicion that yes, that the Pakistani High Commission in India is certainly up to no good. Okay, they are running a spy racket for sure. They are funding these separatists for sure and the stone pelters for sure. That the Chinese embassy in India is probably up to no good, and they're running a spy racket, and they've got a a hideout in Noida which we busted, and somebody is chasing after the Dalai Lama, and they're up to no good. But of course, we are sucked into the assumption that the British, oh come on, they can't be doing it. They're up to nothing. All right. I mean, they are just, they are just here for a round of golf. After what Jack Straw has said, which is, in my humble opinion, not mandated by the Vienna Convention, because there was no mandate to run a parallel investigation by any foreign country in the sovereign territory of India. If he has said that they were doing this, do I now assume that they're also running covert operations which are going to be far more nefarious, perhaps even instigating certain issues within this country?
Well, Rishabh, it is very clear to the West that a Hindu nationalist government, which is how they, describe the BJP leadership, if it wins again in 2024, India will become stronger. If it wins again in 2029, India will be almost, impossible to influence against their own wishes, which is already happening. So to get rid of them between now and 24 is in the interest of the Western powers to have a malleable and weak coalition of a government back in India. This is something for us to all take as a read.
Okay.
It is an assumption.
Okay. So the BBC documentary I can take as the overt attempt. It's literally on video, on tape. Okay, it's an overt attempt to say that the current Indian government is not being run well. The people who are running it are dodgy. They have historical records which are very dodgy and very dangerous. So that's the overt attempt. Professor Nalapath, is that it? Is all the British that are going to do is let BBC publish a documentary with Jack Straw sitting in it? Or do we suspect that more insidious, pernicious, covert attempts are also in play, seeking the same goal?
Rishabh, please don't underestimate the money power of the lobbies that are opposed to, as Gautam Mukherjee and as the Colonel very correctly said, a strong prime minister, a strong and confident country. The less confident the country, the weaker the prime minister, the easier it is to push your own agenda on that country and on that prime minister. You have a strong country, strong prime minister, it becomes almost impossible. So that is going to continue. There is no question about it. I only want to point out very clearly, you remember Kashmir. You remember the situation in Punjab. I mean, the Colonel would have known that. How active elements in Britain, in the United States, in Canada, in parts of Europe, apart from the usual suspects, Pakistan, China, etc., were active in both Kashmir and in Punjab, initially in fomenting the insurgency and then creating a narrative. Oh, these are a bunch of, wonderful people, and against the Indian state, which was fighting back to protect itself. So this has happened before. and it is likely to happen in the future. I know. Look at the prominence that's given to BBC or other, such channels, which basically are yearning for a weak government in India. Oh, very obviously a yearning for that. Look at how they give prominence to individuals who have not a good word to say about India. And as Gautam correctly said, about the Hindu community in general, that is a bunch of fanatics, crazed fanatics, who are going around killing people. And the fact is, this is visibly absurd. But it's continually being said.
Okay.
So the reality is there is an agenda. There is this kind of activity.
Okay,
The
no, but
BBC is
propaganda
an
I can
overt
understand.
part
So the
of that
propaganda
agenda.
I can understand. All right. So here is, okay, propaganda. But there is, I emphasize for people watching this, if you just look at it, oh, some Modi critical documentary, you might agree with it, not agree with it, like it, not like it, that's up to you, okay? That's understandable. You can see it, touch it, feel it. What about the stuff that you can't see, touch and feel, which is what I'm very, very troubled about right now. Colonel Sodhi, on the assumption, sir, that the Pakistanis run a racket here trying to destabilize us, that the Chinese run rackets here trying to destabilize us, should I now take it for granted that the British are doing exactly the same?
Definitely, Rishabh. Pakistan and China are the known culprits, but it is the Britishers and the Americans who are the unknown people doing such things. And this documentary has brought to fore a very important issue. I think the government should take a very strong view of this. We should order a probe that who were the Indians who assisted this. You see, such a big thing cannot happen without the local assistance of the people in the country. We have to probe that. We have to punish those people responsible. We have to promulgate certain measures, Rishabh, which will prevent such incidents from happening. Because like I said, this is not the first, this is not the last. As we near the 2024 elections, these will increase. And just one more point, Rishabh, that why has it taken 21 years for this documentary to be released? I mean, this is not a National Geographic movie which is being made on the life cycle of an animal or a plant. 21 years means they were waiting for an opportune time. Probably they thought that the Narendra Modi government will not last 5 years, will not last 10 years. But to their unhappiness, they are seeing that the present government is becoming stronger with each passing day. And that is why they have pulled out this rabbit from their hat. And like I told you, there'll be many more before the run-up to the 2024 elections.
Okay, and we all know who Jeremy Corbyn likes to hang out with, but we leave that to the conscience of the people who want to go and meet Jeremy Corbyn. But regardless of which government is in power, okay, whether it's a Conservative government or a Labour government, Gautam Mukherjee, if I have just received a confession on tape from a high-ranking functionary that is served in the highest offices in the British government, that they ran operations in violation of the Vienna Convention within this country, what should be either my response or my reciprocity?
Well, the fact is that, this is a desperate attempt to try and polarize the electorate in favor of the people that they would like to see in power, i.e. a weak coalition. Instead, I think it's going to consolidate such, and I agree with Colonel Sodhi, this is not the first, and it won't be the last. Between now and 2024, attempts will be made by a variety of people, including Britain, to destabilize this government, malign it, destabilize and malign the leaderships, and also carry out covert operations which could be dangerous to life and limb of many of our leadership when they're on the campaign trail and so forth. Now, in all of this, the polarization is actually working positively in favor of the BJP. In addition to that, the last time they tried to internationalize it, we were able to quickly nip it in the bud. And now with I2U2 going on and our much improved cooperation with the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, who are guests for the 26th, we are not going to let these people internationalize their lives.
They can try and do whatever they want. They can do whatever they want. They've got the BBC, they've got the New York Times, they've got Washington Post, which is owned by Jeff Bezos, by the way. But here's the point. Here is the point. The point is an admission of a violation of India's sovereignty has just happened, which is not in keeping with the diplomatic Vienna Conventions that prohibit meddling in internal affairs. Now, if a violation of India's sovereignty is not taken seriously by India, that would be a sign of immense weakness. We have to take this seriously, that if a former foreign secretary of the British government has even alluded that a quasi-colonial operation was taking place in this country without the knowledge of our government, that is a serious offense in the meddling of our internal affairs. We have to then allude that this was not the only such operation which we heard of 21 years later, that there were many such. And then we have to beg the question, are the British agencies also running covert operations in this country, not just ones of investigation and documentation, but actually of interference and connivance, looking to propagate regime change and therefore committing an act of war against this country? And for the rest of us, that makes them now no different than the operations we suspect being run by known enemy nations. Because if there is even a modicum of truth that any attempt has been made by any British government to propagate regime change in violation of India's sovereign rights and its democratic system, that qualifies, ladies and gentlemen, in international law as an act of war. This is no longer about a BBC documentary. This is about a confession on camera of the violation of national sovereignty of a free country.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.